Jeff Slauson here from 19 News Now at the 19 News Digital Desk. We are going to be bringing you live to a live look right now from the Miami courthouse as former President Donald Trump is preparing to make his first court appearance for the classified documents case. This is a very complex and very difficult case to kind of nail down specifics on if you're not an expert. And that is why we like to bring in experts and bring in people that actually know what they're talking about in situations like this. We will be bringing in Michael Benza, professor of practice at Case Western University's School of Law here. Michael, I'll pull you up in a quick second. There we go. Awesome. Yeah, Michael, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate the time that you're able to give us on this because, yeah, pretty difficult thing to kind of nail down some specifics on.
Absolutely. There's a lot of moving parts, at least coming from the outside, looking in. Within the courtroom and within how the case is going to proceed, it's a pretty straightforward legal proceeding.
Let's get to that here. Explain to us what you mean by a pretty straightforward legal proceeding.
So what's going to happen right now is that Donald Trump has now been formally arrested. He will go through probably what will be the arraignment, and that is where he will be advised of the charges and the judge will take his plea. Because this is a case that has already been sort of percolating through, this doesn't look like some of the early legal proceedings might look. So this will be his arraignment. He will enter a formal plea, and then the judge will set the timing for the process to go forward, when the next pretrial will be, a tentative trial date. Once that's concluded, the next step will be the formal booking process of Donald Trump. And he will be fingerprinted, he will have a mugshot taken, they will collect his personal information, and then they will go from there.
So that is a separate proceeding that would not happen today, or would that happen following the proceedings that are done in the courtroom today?
So that is handled by the United States Marshals. It will happen immediately after the proceedings in the courtroom.
So this could be
happen out of public. The federal system does not, unlike state systems, does not publish mugshots. So those things will be kept confidential.
Michael, I want to pull to right now, I don't know if you can see it on your screen here, but I mean, it's a pretty chaotic scene down there. But what you're saying is what is going on in the courtroom is a pretty standard Monday to Friday, very traditional thing, right? I mean, this is not something that's out of the ordinary regardless of who it is.
Right. Every defendant coming into the federal court system will go through this exact same process. It happens all the time. Every defendant is treated exactly the same. They will have this very sort of formulaic hearing. Like I said, he will enter his formal plea. Everybody expects that plea will be not guilty. And that sort of sets off this next steps in a criminal trial.
Michael, what we're seeing and the charges brought against them, pulling up right now here, see counts 1 through 37. These are federal charges. For those that are unfamiliar, now the president was indicted a few months ago. What is the difference between what happened then and what is happening now?
So the first set of indictments came from state court and dealt with his conduct in violations of state law, mostly in the area of financial crimes. What this is a separate set of investigations and a separate set of charges charging him with violations of the federal code. That's why it's going to be tried in federal court. So there are very different types of charges, very different type of evidence. But at the end of the day, they're both criminal cases and will proceed mostly like any other criminal case.
Pulling this up again here, is there anything in particular when just the average person would be looking at this? I mean, what does this mean to the person that doesn't really know about this? I mean, counts 1 through 31 there, willful retention of national defense information. Like, what does that mean to a person that's not familiar with this type of language?
So in the criminal system, every conduct that you do is one violation. So you may be looking, as this case proceeds, that these 31 counts involve 31 different sets of conduct related to a particular type of document. The same thing with the obstruction of justice charges. Each of those charges would relate to a specific set of conduct that the government alleges was what the Donald Trump did to obstruct justice. So it's not just the overarching scheme. Each step in each document or each conduct is what leads to those multiple charges.
So, Michael, we do have to confirm now the former president pleading not guilty in court, as you had said, would be very likely here. This is something that people had predicted. So now that the not guilty plea is underway and has been officially submitted, I mean, what type of time frame are we looking at in this? I know these can take these types of court cases can take quite a long time, but it seems like this could take even longer.
So the reality is the timing is really in the defense team's hands at this point. I understand that the prosecutor is going to ask for a speedy trial date. The law regarding speedy trials is 70 days from today. And the prosecution is probably pretty much ready to go to trial because they've had all the time that they need to do their investigation and preparation. Really now it's up to the defense to control the speed because they have the right to file motions, they have the right to do their investigations, and the judge will be very accommodating, as in most criminal cases the judges are, on waiting until the defense says, Your Honor, we are ready to go to trial. The judge has some leeway to say to the defense, no more time, we're going. But at this early stage, we do expect a lot of motions from the defense, challenging the indictment, challenging the location, all of which every defendant has the right to do. That will push the trial date back because the court has to deal with the defense motion.
How much does the lack of precedent, and as far as we've never had a former president involved in this type of situation here, I mean, how much does that kind of play into this? You mentioned how this could keep delaying as a result of the defense's actions, but security questions, things like that, I mean, are all of those things are those kept into account when determining the next steps and the next dates?
Absolutely. So, for example, the defense team is going to have to get security clearances in order to be able to look at the documents that are at issue. If the defense lawyers don't have security clearance, they can't see those materials, and we do not make them go to trial without knowing what the evidence is. So that will take some time. I'm sure the government will work very quickly to get their clearances, but that takes time. I do expect that the defense will mount a pretty vigorous motion practice challenging all aspects of the case. The president has already indicated that he expects to challenge on selective prosecution. And while legally that doesn't really have a strong chance of prevailing, it still has to be addressed. And so all of those things are going to delay the start of the actual trial.
We are speaking with Michael Benza, professor of practice at Case Western University's College of Law, or School of Law, excuse me. Michael, many eyes are on this timeline as far as looking ahead to next year. Obviously, for very clear reasons here, the Republican nomination for president, ultimately a potential election in November of 2024 here. Is there a chance any of this or all of this is cleared up by then? I mean, what can we look at as far as, I know the two things aren't necessarily working together here, but they are moving along with or without the consent of anybody else here. So what can we look at as far as a conflict with those?
So it's very easy to see the case being resolved before the November elections, probably not before at least some of the primaries have been held. In part, that's something the defense can control, and outside of the criminal case, that is something the defense team may be thinking about from a political or publicity point of view. You have to know that there are two courts that are going to be trying this case. One is the criminal court, where the prosecution and the defense will meet for a formal trial, but there's also the court of public opinions. And that court is much bigger and much more subject to being affected by the news cycle and by how both the defense and the prosecution deal with the media.
Another question that naturally comes with something like this. If the president is found guilty, would the president be able to run for president again?
Yes. So this is not the type of crime that would prevent him from winning the election and being sworn in as the president. We have had incidences in the past where people have run, legitimate candidates have run for office from prison. Eugene Debs, probably the most famous of the two, and actually got 3 or 4 or 5% of the popular vote. So it is possible he can run even if he is convicted and is sentenced to prison. It will create another legal problem if he wins the election and he's in prison on how do we do that. And we have not had to face that circumstances before, and so we don't know what that will mean.
So that is something that truly would be, I mean, unprecedented is something I've said 8 times in this interview, but it legitimately would be, right?
Yes, I mean, there's a lot of things that are unprecedented about this. The indictment is unprecedented, the criminal charges are unprecedented, everything that's going to be happening from this day forward is unprecedented. There is the serious question as to if Donald Trump wins the election, this is a federal prosecution, he has the power of clemency. Could he, in fact, pardon himself? Which was a question that was sort of thought about near the end of his term. He ended up not doing that, which would not have affected these. These were future crimes, and he could not give himself a pardon for future crimes. But he certainly has the clemency power. Whether he can or would pardon himself is something that also is yet to be seen.
For those that do not understand exactly what pardoning does, for somebody like the president, what would that do?
So a pardon, in that sense, would say that he is absolved of criminal liability. It is as if the conviction never occurred and he is forgiven and everything from criminal liability goes away. So his prison sentence would go away, any fines or other sanctions that were imposed, all would be eliminated.
It's been now months since the indictment in Manhattan, the Manhattan courthouse there. So and we still don't know exactly when the next time could be. I remember hearing that it was a potential for early 2024 is the next time we could hear about that. Should that show us exactly how long this could take? I know we've been talking about timeline quite a bit here, but does the way that works as far as the criminal courts and the federal courts, do they work similarly as far as that would go, or would that be completely different and not affected at all?
Yeah, so they do work similarly, but some of the docket control, the speed by which things happen in any particular court, is controlled by the judge of that court. Some judges are known for a very methodical court docket, that everything moves in sort of a nice, even, steady flow. And others are known, what lawyers will call the rocket docket, and that is the case is in, we move, we get it, and done and out. I'm not sure how the judge is going to handle the Trump case. We're actually not even sure exactly who the judge is going to be. It's currently assigned to a particular judge that has had issues in the Trump investigations in the past, and there's some discussions as to whether or not she will be the judge for the actual trial.
When would that need to be determined?
It would be actually probably resolved pretty quickly. You don't want somebody making rulings on a case if that judge isn't the judge who's going to hear the trial.
As we look ahead here, we know the not guilty, and for those that did join us a little bit late here, again, if you don't mind, I apologize for making you repeat yourself here, Michael, but if you can just let people know exactly what the next steps would be. We now have the not guilty confirmed, so then what are the next steps today?
So one of the things that will happen in front of the judge will accept the plea, and there's some legal language about, the plea is now entered, it's on the record. The judge will also discuss issues regarding parole, travel restrictions. Most defendants, I don't expect the president to have to do this, but most defendants will make bail. They will have to surrender their passports. They will be restricted in terms of movements. It's unlikely that those types of bail conditions would be imposed on Donald Trump. I would expect the court would allow him to keep his passport. Given his run for the presidency, there will probably not be any travel restrictions, and probably not even a bail requirement in terms of cash, that he would be released on his own recognizance. He doesn't really have an interest in leaving the country. If he's going to run for president, he kind of needs to be in the country. And it's going to be hard for him if he tried to flee to kind of hide. So in all likelihood, there will be no bail. Once those formal court proceedings are taken care of, he will then leave the courtroom, and he will be fingerprinted. They will take a mug shot. They will do the booking paperwork, just the logistics stuff. Who is he? Birth date, eye color, phone numbers, home address, next of kin, those types of paperwork. All of that is handled by the U.S. Marshal's office. At that point, once that is concluded, if the bail issue is resolved, then he will leave the courthouse. And my understanding is he's flying back to New Jersey for a rally this evening.
Yeah, that's what I was just about to say here. So yeah, any travel restrictions would very significantly hamper the presidential campaign that he currently has. Yeah, he's expecting, I believe, to be at his golf course in New Jersey to speak with constituents today. So very much so a packed day for him if this does extend a little bit longer. Michael Benza, anything else you want to add? Anything we didn't touch on that we should have as we were speaking?
No, I think that sort of puts us where we are today. At this point, the ball really shifts over to the defense to start the defense legal process. Remember, in a criminal case, most of the time, the defendant is behind the curve in how the case is going forward because the prosecution does their investigation before the indictment. Now the defense will start to do their work in preparing their case for trial. So we have to go through discovery. The government will reveal documents. They will reveal the identity of witnesses. And then the defense has the opportunity to prepare their case, to identify their own witnesses, interview the government witnesses, review the discovery. Whatever legal motions that need to be addressed will be filed and dealt with by the court. And then we will look for the trial to begin at a certain point.
Before I let you go here, you brought up another point there. How difficult can it be when the witnesses, the documents are secret and top secret when revealing findings?
So that is going to be a logistic issue at the trial itself that they will address with who they choose for the jury and things like that. The first issue is going to be making sure the defense team is able to look at these documents. And so that will be something that may already be moving forward. This is not a surprise for anybody that this indictment is there. So the defense may already be in the process of getting their security clearances. And then you have to start looking, okay, how do we get the ability to reveal this document to the people who are going to be on the jury?
This is an insane time. It's crazy that this is now the second time I've been doing something like this with an indictment. But Michael, you've been an unbelievable wealth of information. So hopefully if this ever happens again, we can give you a call because, yeah, you were really, really helpful on this and answered all the questions. So we really, really appreciate it.
Sure. I'm happy to do it, Jeff.
Michael Benza, the professor of practice at Case Western University's College of Law. Thank you so much for your time today. And yeah, you will be expecting a call from us soon because this very clearly is not ending anytime soon. Thank you so much.
That's right. Okay.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye.
So again, that was, let's pull me back up there, full Michael Benza with the Case Western Reserve University's College of Law. A couple of really important things here I want to discuss as we bring you back out live to the Miami courthouse. I'll actually pull into this, the overhead shot here. We are waiting for the president to leave. However, what we do have confirmed, not guilty plea for the former president, 37 federal charges against him. What Michael hit on, I thought was really important, which is with classified, with secret and top secret documents, with sources that are protected by the federal government, it is going to be really difficult for the defense to have any new findings that could be released to the public for how much the court of public opinion matters. So as we look ahead here, typically the discovery phase will let a lot of these things become public. That may not necessarily be the case here because this all started and is because of documents like these, secret documents, top secret documents that were, according to the Federal Bureau of Investigation, taken by the former president from the White House, not told anybody of that, and then brought to his private residence of Mar-a-Lago. So that is why we are in this situation, but that also provides a really difficult situation for the defense and for the prosecution, right? So anything that they find, they can't release all of that information. For anybody that's read any of the documents that are coming out of the FBI right now, or any of the federal courthouses, anything that you have is heavily redacted. I mean, like, most of it is Sharpied out, covered in black. You can't read it for obvious reasons. They're secret and top secret documents. So any findings that happen over the next couple of days and weeks, yeah, it's going to be difficult to try and have anything new that we can actually discern here. So we have multiple cameras from multiple angles here today showing you what it looks like on the ground in Miami from the courthouses. I'm going to pull all three of them up right now. Yeah, so that's a look at all three of the different cameras that we have. get rid of that real quickly. You can see that there's a crowd on the lower portion. I wish they would show that more. But we have plenty of coverage today of this. Of course, as I speak, we lose one of the shots there. But as we await now for now, just we don't have precedent on this, but we have a kind of precedent from the president being in the Manhattan courthouse a couple of months ago for the indictment on the criminal charges that were related to the financial crimes from hush money payments made to the porn star Stormy Daniels. What we're seeing here, and what we have seen, is all of the court proceedings are done. He already pled not guilty. Then he leaves the courthouse with like a limo or something, and that is when his lawyers speak, typically. Now, his lawyers resigned the day that this came down. So that was last week. It was basically a week from today. When this came down, his lawyers resigned. That was the day when all of these charges came down. So who will speak? Not really entirely sure. I want to play for you now a story coming to us courtesy of CBS that break down today, this morning, what you didn't see from the ground in Miami.
There will be house arrest. Let's hope it's not the White House.
Protesters are gathering outside the Miami courthouse where former President Donald Trump is expected to arrive this afternoon.
We're here to show Trump support because this guy here, Jack Smith, thinks that because he arrested Trump, that everybody gonna be scared to support him.
Special counsel Jack Smith arrived in Miami Monday evening. He alleges Trump illegally retained classified documents, storing them at his Mar-a-Lago home, and conspired to hide them from the government, who had subpoenaed Trump to get them back. The former president is expected to plead not guilty to the 37 counts.
They have one shot to block him from the White House, and make no mistake, their goal is to put him in prison. So it's time for battle.
Today's arraignment is expected to be quick. Then Trump plans to head back to his New Jersey golf club to rally with supporters and meet with campaign donors tonight. Trump's poll numbers have risen since his indictment, but some Republicans are expressing concern the case will hurt their chances of defeating President Biden.
For us to win the presidential race in 2024, we don't need to be distracted. We need to be focused on the future.
Trump says he will not quit, even if he's convicted. Christian Benavides, CBS News, Miami.
And that brings us back out live to the Miami courthouse, the federal courthouse, where former President Donald Trump has just pled not guilty to 37 federal charges. We found out about this last week when it was released to the public, courtesy of the former president. He posted it on the Truth Social saying that he was being indicted. These are the charges. Let's read them out for you here. Counts 1 through 31. He's being charged with willful retention of national defense information. Count 32, conspiracy to obstruct justice. Count 33, withholding a record. Count 34, corruptly concealing record. Count 35, concealing a document in a federal investigation. Count 36, scheme to conceal documents in a federal investigation. And count 37, false statements made to federal officials. All of those accumulating now to the point that we are at, which is people lining the streets outside of this Miami courthouse, this Miami federal courthouse, where the former president has just pled not guilty. I repeat, not guilty was the new was the play here, or plea here. So we're keeping it live. Let's see if we can listen and hear anything. So yeah, you're continuing to see the people gathering outside of Mar-a-Lago, or not Mar-a-Lago, excuse me, Miami Federal Courthouse. Trump supporters showing their support for the former president. His attorneys today, Todd Blanche and Chris Kise, K-I-S-E. Let me write those down here. Those are who we are expecting to hear from. Now these, for those of you that have been following this pretty closely, and I know this has been a lot, those are not his usual lawyers. Those are not the ones that he has had representing him in the other cases. Let's take a listen here. Okay, so at least for our CBS coverage that we have, that is going to continue due to the fact that we are waiting for the president to depart the courthouse. The reason, or him not departing yet, shows very clearly that he is still there, potentially getting his fingerprints done or answering just the mundane questions here. This video courtesy of Local News Live, which is our digital-only affiliate here from Gray TV, shows the Trump plane, and then on the left-hand side. Okay, so Trump's attorney, Chris Keese, that is one of the attorneys. He was brought onto the legal team in August of 2022. That is following the investigation and decision to take the FBI's decision to take the documents there. So he was brought August of 2022. Sorry, I'm writing as we're kind of going here. So as we continue oh, here we go. All right, so we got a little more action outside of the courthouse from the Trump supporters here. All right, so there's actually more of a crowd that has shown up here now outside of this Miami courthouse. You can see on the right-hand side, that is directly outside of the courthouse. And on the left-hand side, that is kind of at the corner there. I was hoping that our aerial view would show us a little bit more of that. However, that's not happening as of right now. Let me see if it does. So that's the aerial view. So if you look on the left-hand side, okay, so you see the palm trees left-hand side of the building, that's where a large percentage of the crowds are. And then some are at the corners there. We're still waiting for the president. We anticipate that he will leave through either the back of the side, hop into one of those black cars, and then take off toward the airport. CBS News did a poll today asking if the former president should be able to serve as president, and 57% say no. We are waiting to see. That looks like it's going to be the area where the former president's going to leave, and that's where our coverage kind of is extending. Hoping to potentially hear from one of the attorneys representing the former president. However, unsure if that's going to happen. Again, the only precedent we have for this and from this is precedent from the former president, from the indictment that took place months ago in a Manhattan courthouse. His attorneys did speak following that. However, these are different attorneys. Todd Blanche and Chris Keese are the attorneys representing him. I'm also seeing right now CBS special report showing the scene that's been set up in Bedminster, New Jersey, where the former president will be attending a rally for his campaign in a few hours. So the anticipation is he will leave the Miami courthouse, get on a plane, head from Florida to New Jersey, and then attend one of his rallies. Again, I believe that is at one of his facilities in Bedminster, New Jersey. As I had mentioned, our colleagues over at Local News Live, again, which is our digital-only product here from Gray TV, have been covering this extensively. I'm going to pull it up a little bit, but they have some shots that we don't have access to, which you can see here, like on the right-hand side there, looks to be members of Secret Service or some sort of security detail waiting near a garage that goes most likely under that federal courthouse. Let's pull up right now and listen in to what they are saying and seeing if they have any different views on this one.
Flopped the two locations here, but it really sounded like a stump speech. It sounded like a campaign speech when it came down to it. He kind of at the very beginning and the very end addressed the arraignment proceedings, but the rest of it was just much of what we've come to expect when former President Trump is at a microphone unscripted. Even when he is scripted, you know, he goes off script quite a bit. So I'm expecting a similar thing. It is a fundraising event. This is, of course, he's trying to capitalize off of this to boost his profile more. And we did, you know, he does seem to get a boost in support following days like this. He does raise a lot of money. His percentage points go up in the polls a little bit as he makes the case that he's being targeted by the government, and it does help him out. So that's what I would expect tonight. And again, that's scheduled for 8:15 Eastern, the actual speaking part of this at Bedminster. So we will, of course, carry that live right here on Local News Live for you as well, and have some analysis of that. But that's what I would expect. And this was already, from what I understand, kind of in the works before today, before the arraignment even happened. So this was kind of a fundraising event already in the works, taking on a lot more meaning today.
And as we look into the future, something that's coming out, this is from the New York Times, saying this may not be the former president's last arraignment. We talked about these other cases and, of course, how they are all singular in nature and that they don't interfere with the others. But a reminder, he is also under investigation in Georgia for his efforts.
So you heard there a little bit of an update on what's going on in Bedminster, New Jersey. That's tonight, 8:15, when the president's speech is anticipated to happen here. I do want to show you a story really quickly coming to us courtesy of CBS News about today, about what we've expected today, and about the different things that happened with this indictment.
In a matter of hours, former President Trump will be arraigned at a federal courthouse in Miami. He has said he will plead not guilty to 37 felony counts, all stemming from his alleged mishandling of sensitive materials after leaving office.
The total volume and the scope and the sensitivity of this material is an intelligence catastrophe waiting to happen.
Yesterday, the former president traveled from New Jersey to his resort in Doral, Florida, where his supporters and some counter-protesters gathered outside.
It feels a bit like a witch hunt to me.
Enough is enough. He needs to pay.
Protests are expected today outside of the Miami courthouse. So far, local law enforcement says it is not aware of any credible threats.
We're bringing enough resources to handle crowd anywhere from 5,000 to 50,000. We don't expect any issues.
Department of Justice Special Counsel Jack Smith also arrived in Miami last night. After his arraignment, Trump plans to head back to his Bedminster, New Jersey golf club, where he'll give remarks and hold a fundraiser. Cristian Benavides, CBS News, Miami.
Those security concerns are something that you heard mentioned when we had our conversation earlier today, just a little bit ago, with Michael Benza, professor of practice over at Case Western. And he explained how that does affect the decisions that are made, whether it comes to how or why a certain indictment is read at a certain place, things like that. I want to just point your attention to the left-hand side of the screen there. That seems to be like a faux podium that's been set up. So that's where we can potentially anticipate to hear from a lawyer representing the former president here. Again, that will either be Todd Blanche or Chris Keese. Both of them have been named to Trump's legal team just a little bit ago here. Okay, we're seeing some increased movement now heading toward the underground garage portion of the federal courthouse. On the right-hand side, you're seeing that underground portion, the garage underneath the courthouse. On the left-hand side, you are seeing the courthouse itself. I can't be sure here, but I can be pretty positive that we will not see the president leaving. We will just see the car leaving. It won't be like what happened in New York. So basically what we'll see is the president's entourage get out from underneath and kind of jet away here. And then hopefully we will hear from, at some point, the representatives that represent the former president. Let's pull up Local News Live again here for you.
So any defense attorney will tell you that if you're trying a case outside of your sort of regular courthouse that you go to, you always want a good local counsel who's known in that courthouse. They know the clerks, they know the way the system works, they know the defense bar. It makes your case just much stronger.
Sure. Yeah, and it's just the fact that this is in Florida, and I mean, of course, Donald Trump has a lot of, that's where his home is. He's got several properties there, so he's no stranger to Florida. They're no stranger to him as well. So no doubt he has lots of connections, but he also has lots of baggage, and that's what's been, it seems like, kind of holding back the process and slowing down the process of him trying to solidify his legal team as some lawyers resign, and then either trying to convince others, and it does seem like very complicated when you're throwing all these different cases. Then when you have Georgia on the horizon, which many analysts predict those charges are coming at some point, maybe late summer.
And he is actually in Florida. That is his primary residence.
Right. Yeah.
He had moved from New York. I think New York, he had lived there for many years, but I think New York was happy to. I remember this because I was covering it at the time, that they were just too happy to let him go and live in Florida and have that be his primary residence. Another thing, just to let you know, a little bit of fun fact, tomorrow is his 77th birthday.
That's right.
And so this fundraiser, this event tonight is one day ahead of that. talking back about that Georgia case, though, that had the one phone call that was recorded that was very damning at the time. I need you to find those 11,000 votes, speaking to the Georgia Secretary of State, Brad Raffensperger, and looking for him to find those additional votes. And so when you look at all of the cases, there was, of course, the E. Jean Carroll civil case, which, was so long ago, you got to wonder, like, what kind of evidence is there, et cetera. And then, of course, there's the New York case. And then there's this case where we have all of these documents and all of these pictures. And then you've got that one with the phone call, the recorded phone call. And we didn't even get to January 6th yet.
There's certainly a lot going on. And I think that this is where the former president should really listen to all of his attorneys and stop making comments. Stop having fundraisers where you talk about your legal troubles, where you attack judges and prosecutors and people at the Department of Justice.
And this, of course, different from the other classified cases that are out there, as we spoke to our White House correspondent and our in-house lawyer, John Decker. He spoke earlier about this. The one thing that's different in these classified document cases with President Biden, also with former president or former vice president, rather, Mike Pence, is that they cooperated. They didn't try to unlawfully retain these documents, and nor did they try to conspire with a top aide or with their attorneys to try to make sure that those documents stayed in-house. And so that's the thing that's different here, and that's, of course, why we are here.
Well, and that's one of the things that we know is different. There's so much we don't know. We don't know what was actually contained in those documents to the same level that we know what was contained in these.
We just saw some video of President Biden. He's not touching this with a 10-foot pole.
Nor
the White
should
House,
he, right?
The White House.
All right, we're going to pull away there as they touch on a topic that I do not think is actually relevant to the situation here. The crowd in front of the courthouse has started to build more and more and more as we've continued. The former president, Donald Trump, pleading not guilty at about 3:20, around there. So he was due in court at 3 o'clock. Let's go through the timeline here. Due in court at 3. That's when he has read the charges, and the list is pretty long here. Let's pull that up for you right now. So he's read all of the charges, and then his plea, he chooses to enter either guilty or not guilty. That is when he would enter that plea. Again, 37 counts, so he's read all the counts, and they would have to go count 1, willful retention of national defense information, count 2, willful, so it takes time, right? Following that, he enters his plea. Then, once that is done, he would leave that area of the courtroom. He would then go to the booking and processing area, where he would be fingerprinted, have his mugshot done, identify himself. Also, there's a potential where if he would need to bail himself out, which our legal expert there, Michael Benza, does not believe would have happened, that he would have to bail himself out. However, there's a chance that could have happened. So then he would have to do that, and then he could get in the car and leave. Now, you heard earlier from our report, the former president is expected to be in Bedminster, New Jersey in just a few hours. He's speaking at 8:15 tonight to a crowd of supporters. So he'll need to get out of there pretty quickly to get on the flight and head over there for his speech. But obviously he cannot determine how long it will take for the booking and processing. The Miami Police Department saying that they have enough security and that they are capable to handle between 5,000 and 50,000, I think is what he said. So they're ready. They're very much so ready for the people that could be there, and as I'll show you multiple views here. There we go. Yeah, so this shows you multiple areas of the crowd, left-hand side, right-hand side. There's multiple areas of the crowd here that are kind of covering the downtown streets of Miami. All right, let's bring you back now live to Local News Live.
Defendant keeps talking to me about the case. I don't want to talk to him about it. I have my defense is opposite of his, and do something about it. And that's really when it comes to light. But it's true. It is something that's nearly impossible to police, especially if the two of them are by themselves doing things together.
Right.
How would you?
Yeah, I guess you're just talking about lunch. I mean, it's what we should be talking about. But that would be interesting if to see what their relationship is like going forward. Now that they're both implicated in this indictment.
I would say probably not so good. I mean, how can your relationship be that great after, well, you did what your boss told you?
This shot in particular, I think, is really important to show here, because that is the look down heading into the underground garage where most likely the former president entered and then will leave again. So keeping an eye on this one. Again, we don't have this one, this shot, other than what is provided to us from Local News Live. But that one, I think, kind of gives us the clearest indication about what is happening and what we can expect from this Miami courthouse. Again, the former president pleading not guilty to 37 federal charges. Again, I want to pull those up for you so you can take a look. 37 federal charges, counts 1 through 31, willful retention of national defense information, count 32, conspiracy to obstruct justice, count 33, withholding a record, count 34, corruptly concealing a record, count 35, concealing documents in an investigation, and count 36, scheme to conceal those documents, and lastly, count 37, false statements made during a federal investigation. I want to bring you now to, again, for those that are just joining us here, we're just waiting to hear from Trump's attorneys the story that was done earlier today, courtesy of CBS.
There will be house arrest. Let's hope it's not the White House.
Protesters are gathering outside the Miami courthouse where former President Donald Trump is expected to arrive this afternoon.
We're here to show Trump support because this guy here, Jack Smith, thinks that because he arrested Trump, that everybody gonna be scared to support him.
Special counsel Jack Smith arrived in Miami Monday evening. He alleges Trump illegally retained classified documents, storing them at his Mar-a-Lago home, and conspired to hide them from the government, who had subpoenaed Trump to get them back. The former president is expected to plead not guilty to the 37 counts.
They have one shot to block him from the White House, and make no mistake, their goal is to put him in prison. So it's time for battle.
Today's arraignment is expected to be quick. Then Trump plans to head back to his New Jersey golf club to rally with supporters and meet with campaign donors tonight. Trump's poll numbers have risen since his indictment, but some Republicans are expressing concern the case will hurt their chances of defeating President Biden.
For us to win the presidential race in 2024, we don't need to be distracted. We need to be focused on the future.
Trump says he will not quit, even if he's convicted. Cristian Benavides, CBS News, Miami.
Brings us back out to the courthouse here in Miami as the former president is most likely entering into the final steps into his sorry, you just pulled on to Local News Live there. The final steps in his plea in Miami following the federal charges brought against him, federal indictment for the former president. 37 federal charges have been brought up in this situation here. 37. I asked earlier today, and we'll hope to be able to maybe cut some of this up. Maybe we'll play it a little bit later here. Michael Benza, the professor of practice over at Case Western Reserve University, I asked him, what does this mean for the chances for the former president to run for president, to become president? He said, look, even if he's convicted, he could still win the presidency, still could be president. The only difficulty is if he goes to jail, what does that mean for the actual status of the presidency? He said, he's like, look, this has never happened before. So what actually takes place, we don't know. But where we go from here is basically just wait, like at least to this point is. All right, so yeah, so he's definitely speaking at 15. Sorry, we're just trying to get the information here to learn potentially when his lawyers could speak, which is what we are waiting for. Bring up again for you here the federal charges that are brought against the former president. There we go. So these are those charges that have been brought against the president here. We still await for his lawyers to speak. Hopefully once his lawyers do speak, we will be able to bring you the latest from the Miami courthouse. Just trying to track to see if anything's changed as far as movement outside. Let's take a listen. All right, so I just pulled this up here. That's the aerial shot. Some movement outside now. That is officers, I don't know if they're state or if they're just from Miami, getting ready on their motorcycles outside of, this is directly outside of the point where the former president would exit the court. So this could be some pretty major movement and show us, at least hopefully, that the president could be heading out. Well, let's take a listen. All right, so we are still waiting. I was hoping we were going to be able to get some information as to if he was heading out right now from CBS. That did not take place. So we were just waiting to see when the president will leave. But that is the first movement that we've seen outside of this courtroom, which is the former president will exit. Okay, yep, so we're seeing a little bit of movement there. You can see that some of the motorcycles are starting to peel out. Okay, yep, so we're seeing even more movement now outside of the front of the building. That is the back, excuse me. So we've got movement there. We have movement, pull this up for you as well. So we got movement there, we got movement here outside as well. So two different areas right now we are seeing some increased movement. Look at that. Okay, so that's a new barricade that's been set up. So I think the former president is getting ready to leave the courthouse right now. They anticipated this was going to take a while, but we didn't know how long this would take. Clearly, it's been almost an hour. CBS News saying they will end our coverage at 4 on our station. So and then we'll bring you back out live right now to the front of the building, where even more people continue to surround. And as per usual with something like this, we apologize for any profanity that is seen. So we have that shot there, which shows us a live shot from the front of the federal courthouse in Miami. Then we have this shot here, which shows us an aerial view of the current situation in Miami. What you're seeing right there, that's basically right in the exterior or near the exterior entrance of the building. Let's pull this up really quickly. So you can see there's a row of motorcycles, then that black SUV in the middle, and then a couple of cop cars. So what I'm pretty sure is going to happen here is the former president will exit. There's probably another car underneath, to be honest. They'll exit at that point and then move their way toward the airport and then take off. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's what's going to be happening. We're going to tune into Local News Live again really quickly. I want to see if they have any information we do not have at the moment.
Things at this point in this case.
Absolutely. I think that is one of the former president's biggest weaknesses is he can't stop making incendiary statements that will harm him. I wouldn't be surprised if he makes outrageous comments this evening, if he's called back in court to be given a gag order or to be given instructions while this case is pending on the kinds of remarks that he should or should not make.
Intrigued to see if he has anything to say about Judge Eileen Cannon. She was not involved today, but she has been at least a bit more friendly to the former presidents earlier on in these proceedings when she appointed that special master, kind of slowed the case down a little bit. There is Eileen Cannon right there in Florida. And according to some analyst that I spoke with yesterday, another former federal prosecutor, he said probably the biggest risk for the special counsel of filing in Florida was getting Eileen Cannon, and apparently that's what happened here. But it'll be curious to see if Trump has anything maybe nicer to say about her, trying to get on her good side.
Well, he appointed her, so
that's right.
You would think that he would have a little bit more respect for her. But there have been calls for her to recuse herself, and it'll be interesting to see how that gets played out. She was assigned to this case, and they have a random process in assigning cases to different judges, and that process was followed, and she is the judge that came up. But I believe she was his last, or if close to his last federal appointment before he left office.
And speaking of the process here, what we're learning is that this hearing today for both the former president as well as his personal aide, Walt Nauta, lasted roughly about 47 minutes. We do know that the former president entered a plea of not guilty, through one of his attorneys. However, his co-defendant Nauta did not enter a plea. So this is the new information here. He, however, did request an extension on arraignment, which is now set for June 27th. Of course, that's the end of this month. Nauta's lawyer needs local counsel to sponsor him. So that's a new bit of information here. Again, I want to ask our resident expert here, is this expected on his behalf?
Sure. I wouldn't say that it's expected in a public arraignment of this sort of magnitude. You would have assumed that he would have had local counsel. It wasn't a surprise to him, but defendants are given adequate time to get the appropriate counsel in place. And as we know, I believe that this indictment was made public last week. And so it is not unheard of not to have an appropriate legal team in place within such a short period of time. Not having local counsel is what we were talking about earlier. The attorney that appeared with him is simply most likely is not barred to practice in that jurisdiction, so simply cannot enter a guilty plea. It would not be proper. He would need to have local counsel to move him in, to sponsor him to do so.
You're looking right now live at the courthouse in Miami, one of the most high-profile court appearances in U.S. history, as we wait for former President Donald Trump and his motorcade to leave. And it looks like I'm seeing some lights here, and this was the video we were looking for. So certainly we don't know which car he's in, but we do know that this is the...
All right, so that is former President Donald Trump leaving Miami. This is the Miami Federal Courthouse in downtown Miami. He is leaving. Let's see if there's any indication if that's his car or maybe a car behind. Yep, so this is definitely it. So this seems to be it. Former president now leaving the courthouse building.
Once again, CBS News is different than our coverage. Will conclude at 4 o'clock Eastern. There's no top of the hour. Please stand by for our coverage to conclude at 4 o'clock.
So this is kind of the moment that we have been waiting for over the last hour, which is the former president leaving the courthouse after pleading not guilty to 37 federal charges related to the classified documents that were found at Mar-a-Lago, the president's private residence in Florida. You were seeing the motorcade leave there and also leaving there. So there he goes, the former president leaving Miami courthouse. You can see an absolute, this is mayhem around the streets of Miami here. You can see why this has become such a circus in so many ways because of how dangerous this can be to so many people. But that is the former president leaving. I'm going to wait just a couple of more minutes here to see if at some point his lawyers speak. However, it does not seem like they will be speaking. There's a podium to the left there. But there is the former president leaving, and either maybe that one, maybe it's one of these. We don't know exactly which one but that's his motorcade for sure. So CBS News will be wrapping up their coverage at 4 o'clock. That is when we will switch you back to our coverage here at 19 News and our 4 o'clock newscast taking over right then and there. But that is the motorcade leaving for Miami International Airport, where ultimately the former president will hop into his plane, fly up the coast to Bedminster, New Jersey, and be at a campaign event at 8:15. I'm not sure if we will be covering that live, just due to some of our rules that we have and regulations related to how we cover elections. If we cover him, we need to cover Biden. But that is a look at it. Okay, so then you see the traffic here too. That does seem like they're blocking off traffic right now in anticipation of the former president making his way onto the freeway, and then again ultimately heading toward that area. You see a man there dressed in some regalia. Just thought I'd pull that up for you to see. And then, yeah, so we wait as the former president heads now to the Miami airport after pleading, again, not guilty. 37 counts related to classified documents found at Mar-a-Lago. This is, okay, so let's see here. Yeah, it seems like that is backed up entirely due to the motorcade. Got to wonder where they're going to hop on, so we're going to wait and see what the chopper shows here. Not saying anything on there, that's fine. Yep, so now they're getting on the freeway. Yep, okay, so this makes sense. Yep, so the police escort and convoy that it currently has former President Donald Trump has left the courthouse, has hopped on the thruway, and will make their way ultimately to their plane to head up to Bedminster, New Jersey. That is going to end our coverage here of the former president departing again the Miami courthouse and heading ultimately up toward the airplane there. Was hoping to hear at some point the former president speak, or at least his lawyers. That's not happening. You can see there the entire thruway is closed off to allow for the motorcade to make its way. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 marked vehicles or unmarked vehicles there, and then you have the 2 cars in the middle of there. This is the president's plane, which is obviously gearing up, preparing for him to get to the plane. They're turning now and then heading toward the airport. Does not seem like we are going to be hearing anything more. I'm going to just tune in really quickly.
On the alligator.
Not that one. Nope, no audio coming out of this one, okay. Yeah, so it does not seem like we're going to be getting any more information here. Just we'll be watching the cars pass. All right, so that'll end our coverage here with 19 News of the special coverage here from former President Donald Trump's indictment, pleading not guilty to 37 federal charges in this. We, of course, will have much more on this tonight on 19 News, starting at 4 o'clock. If you are watching on our digital platforms right now, we are just going to switch basically right over. So I'm going to talk for the next 20 seconds so we can get from there to there, and then ultimately you will just see a natural switch here. Of course, if we hear anything else from the Trump campaign, we have that 8:15 campaign announcement that is anticipated to happen in Bedminster, New Jersey. So the president's got to hop on this plane, fly up to New Jersey, hop off, and then do that call there. But the motorcade making its way now toward Miami International Airport. Of course, this is very much so an ongoing situation here. We will have our 19 News coverage beginning over on CBS, starting, I believe, right now. So as soon as they wrap up their coverage, we will wrap up our coverage here, switch back right over, so then you'll be able to see the latest there. I believe that's happening right now, but I'm still waiting for them because I'm just watching the TV. We're kind of going through this together as this has been happening here. Again, that is outside of the courthouse. There's a podium on the left-hand side. That's why I keep kind of getting rid of this, but I do not see anything else change there. So we're just waiting for the switch over to local news. And then as soon as that happens, we'll be able to, there we go. Okay, yep, that is the end of our special report with CBS. We will now bring you to our coverage of 19 News at 3 o'clock, delayed until 4.
'19 News, now streaming on Samsung Smart TV. Search for channel 1035.